I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I thought Bob was here.
He is.
Oh, there he is. Are you back there eating, Bob?
I knew if he stood there long enough, he'd have a cookie.
Good. Well, thank you all for coming. Thanks to the foundation for bringing snacks for us tonight and having our little meeting at the beginning here. So the first order of business is the budget hearing. Randy?
On July 20th, we did publish the Code 99 or the publication page. And just briefly, I'll kind of recap what was on that. If you look at the it starts with the general fund. That's always 20 mil, if you look over here to the right. And these documents are available. You can download them there on Board Docs too, if you like. If you look at the supplemental general fund, or mostly referred to as the LLB, you'll see 18.34 or 384 mil, and that's a 0.33 increase from last year. And then moving down to the second page, if I can move it. You'll notice the bond and interest at 9.824, and that one is up about 0.81 from last year. And then this little one in here, I don't know if a lot of people know what that is, but it says a special assessment. And back when we did the bond issue for the elementary school, a large desire in this community was to have a Bittersweet Bridge. And to do that in partnership with the city, we agreed to a special assessment back then, which you'll notice is a minimal mill rate, 0.816, but it is 0.17 higher than last year. And altogether, if you come down to the total mill rate, and I'm trying to look down here, 53.024, it's about a 1.3 mil increase from last year. So that's the publication page. And then to recap what we talked about last month, I will tell you that we left it at 2550 students. We're relatively sure that'll be around 2,600 or so this year. The good news to that is we budget on 2550. We set the LOB as it is at 30% of the general fund. And then later on this year, when we have our audit and we know those numbers are 2,600 or more, we republish. And then we get that per pupil rate for those additional students without impacting local property taxes on the LOB. So that's kind of a benefit of doing it that way. The last couple of years, we decided not to do it that way because we wanted to get all the money we could as quickly as we could because they were cutting money in the middle of the year. And this last year, they didn't do that, so we're kind of back to our normal way of doing business. The other thing, and I know some of you, this may be the first time that you're looking at our Form 150. But basically, you start with how many students that you expect. We put 2550. And then you have the various weightings. And in our case, number 4 is high enrollment, which with that factor of 0.035, we pick up 89.4 FTE, bilingual 3, weighted vocational ed 25, and that's a student may be in 1 hour. They divide that, and so it's they determine that number by hours of vocational ed that students are enrolled in, and you take all the total of those hours, and it gives us 25 FTE. At-risk students, 239.4. And then one that I wanted to point out, and it'll be important later, is estimated special education weighting. And you'll notice the 2,220,168, which divided by the per pupil rate gives us a 578.5 on the FTE. That number is important later. I'll show you why here in a few minutes. You take all those together and you get a total number with all the weightings multiplied by the per pupil rate, gives you $13,725. And then the local option budget, which is 30%, remember that the court said to the state, how much that it took to have an adequate education. And so the LOB is still based on the amount they're supposed to be giving us without the cuts that they made, which is $4,433. So with that, we get a $15 million general fund. And then I wanted to show you state aid, which is kind of interesting. If you take our general fund budget and you look at the local effort, remember this number right here, this $2,220,168, we just looked at it, special ed weighting. This is kind of tricky because they put it in here and call it local effort, when in fact your general fund is based on 20 mil. And so it's kind of a flow through. You've heard the term flow through. They flow it back through the general fund. But if you take all of that and you analyze how much is locally produced and how much state aid you receive, locally we're producing 15% of our general fund. And that's considering without that $2 million in special ed right here. Even if you wanted to recycle that, and for some unknown reason we didn't get all the other local effort, and then it would become part of the local effort, it would add 5%. So if somebody talks to you about the general fund, state aid produces about 85% of our general fund. Locally, property taxes produce about 15%. To be safe, call it 20. Because of the special ed flow through. And then the last thing I wanted to show you, and then I'll be quiet if I can get the right form. Just want to add them in order. Estimated supplemental general state aid, which is also kind of interesting. If you look at the number one adopted local option budget, $4,652,000, and then you look at the state aid of $2,193,000, you can easily state with accuracy that the state funds about 47% of our LOB. So when you put those numbers together, and you think about the elections coming, today, currently, a large portion of our school business is funded by the state of Kansas. Okay. Any questions? Now, the other thing I wanted to point out real quick, Dr. Ludlow, before I get quiet and quit talking, is that if you want the entire budget document, it's listed there as budget document, and you can open that if you want to and go through the various things in the document. It's not recreational reading. It's like I've told the board all along. Start with the publication page and look at the Form 150, and that tells you the whole story. Best case scenario, this is fiction. It's a plan at best. Because line items change throughout the year, expenditures and so forth. But what's real are the property taxes and that mill rate associated with them. Even after the auditor comes and says, we're taking away 10 transportation kids, we're giving you 12 special ed kids, it all changes. And what we call our document of authority is the final audit report. And that's really what the state bases everything off of. But you got to have a budget. Even though we've been operating on this budget without approval since July 1, you have to have a plan. And the good news is people can relatively count on the mill rates associated with it. And I'm open to any questions.
Any questions for Dr. Bagby? Anybody like to make a motion?
Me, huh?
It's your turn.
It's my turn.
I'm keeping track.
You're keeping track. I move that we accept the recommendation to adopt the 2012-2013 budget as presented.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Very good. Did everybody have a chance to look at the agenda on board docs? I move that we approve the agenda and the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Any questions or discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Good. Any comments or concerns about the minutes or the bills that were presented? Those aren't action items, are they, Randy?
No.
Okay. Alrighty. Danielle, anybody want to speak to our group? No?
Just a quick note, we did have a citizen that had wanted to address the board and could not be here and produced a letter, and just for the record I want to mention that I did print that letter and give it to the board, and that I have 30 copies for those in the audience that may like to read the letter as well.
Hollis and Miller?
Okay, I know our presentations are usually really long, so this one's really only 10 minutes, I promise. I just wanted to come here today and kind of give you an update. We have continually met through the summer with the high school staff as well as the middle school staff, and we held our last meeting on the 24th of July, so we've kind of wrapped up that. We're still working on some of these images, and we will be meeting with Dr. Bagby and a few of his people tomorrow to start talking about what Hollis Miller can do to help with the bond campaign and try to get some promotional material out, some flyers and stuff like this, and really try to get that going. But I just wanted to give you an update of where we are at the design. Again, nothing's final. If you have questions or you'd like to see it a different way, please let me know, because this is you guys' project. This is not exactly what I want to see. It's how you guys need to understand it and what you guys want to see. So again, we are not down to the bottom yet. We have not figured out every little piece of the pie. We're still flying at 30,000 feet. Get this bond issue passed, and then we'll start digging in deep. Again, for the high school, we'll always do high school first. Our concentration is learners today, leaders tomorrow. We always just keep that in mind as we're going through this. But just want to present, this is kind of the site plan as it has evolved for today. Keep making it and add some trees and making it easier to read and more pleasing to the eye. We still have all the same fields in the same spots. High school size has not changed. We do show the expansion. That's what the lines that aren't filled in orange right near the building. We still show the possibility of a future YMCA. We have the parking, football stadium, soccer fields, baseball fields, tennis courts, and the softball fields. Does anybody have any questions with this site plan or things that aren't clear to them or questions that we need to clarify with the community as we go through these? Do you think do most people know where the site is in the community, or do we need to add a kind of vicinity map within Lansing community of where this site is? We do?
I think you should, because people are getting confused between two empty fields.
Okay. Okay. We'll keep that in mind as we keep going through this, okay? Since last time we've seen you, we've added quite a bit more color to the plans, trying to really spruce these up and make them readable. So I'll go through these on all the different floors. So again, we're going to start at the bottom. We have our educational wing out to the side and our commons area. Our courtyard's there. The second floor, we still have more common core classes, academic wing on the right. This gets us to our main gym floor level and our main auditorium level on the left side. And on our top floor, we still have our academic on the right. We have the top-loading gym, the top of the auditorium, and the auxiliary gym in a future phase, and the pool shown there. So that just kind of gives you a graphic how everything goes. And remember, this is showing built out all the way to 1,600 kids. So this is with the planned expansion, so we know where it's going to go and how it's going to fit. You guys pretty comfortable with these plans? Do you feel that you can explain it, or do I need to go through it more with you guys? Okay. Here comes the fun parts. These are some of the images we've developed to help people understand what this possibly could look like. This is not a defined decision. We'll definitely get more into that, but this is just a representation of some of the masses and some of the, we've talked about red brick versus other stones and just some very general images. Everything can always change, but to give some of the taxpayers an idea of what this could look like. This is the entry, or this is the perspective from the front of the school. So this is that drop-off lane, that big circle drive in the front. So this would be the pool building over here. We'd have some gym entrance for activities, our main entrance. Mr. Dyke's suite right up here. His office is right there in that window.
Can you point out Miss Hutton standing there in the window looking at the library?
Miss Hutton, you should see yourself right about there, overlooking the nice big courtyard. All our academic wing is on this side, and our freshman academy is this red brick that you see starting here. So freshmen will be right next to the admin, right up top, right near the front. We have a second image that kind of really just plays up the entry. Again, no materials have been decided. It's just, we know you guys like the red brick buildings when we're on tours, but it's also, can we do a lighter color stone at the entrance to say, hey, this is something different. These are you guys' images. Is there anything different that you'd like to see portrayed as we start to roll this out to the community? Are you happy with it and understand where we're going? On to the middle school. Again, we're still at 30,000 square feet here. Okay, sorry, technical difficulties. We have our site plan here. Orange is showing the existing building, and then the two yellow spots show our two addition areas. But again, this also shows that we will be using the outbuildings behind the high school and the gym out of the old high school, or intermediate as I would know it as. And this just shows the faded part. Everything is on this site, but there's only part of it that actually is the middle school site. Okay, our floor plans for the middle school. This is the first floor coming in. We have our admin suite that's been renovated, and the new library, our media center on the end. And then again, all these core classrooms in here, we will touch in some way, shape, or form. New floors, new ceilings, or redoing them as we need to accommodate the middle school. So we have the bottom floor, we have the top floor. Same thing as you can see, all those red areas are areas we're touching. Right in there, showing the outbuildings in the back being used for program. And then lastly, the exciting part, the images. These are some of the images we've come up for the front of the building, showing the new safe and secure entry vestibule, and a little bit more glass so that the admin can see who is coming into their building. Again, as we talked with the teachers, they were very excited to see a different material used on the front, so it was something new and exciting and really drew attention to say, hey, this is new, this is the entry, this is where I want to go. And the other image. Told you I'd keep it short and sweet today. These are kind of, so if there's anything that you guys see in these images or something you don't like, you guys are taxpayers in this community. We want to hear from you guys because you guys know more than anybody what you want to see and what we should promote. So if there's any comments, please let me know. If there's any questions that we can help address as we start to make some promotional material help, please let us know. We'd like to include your questions. We'll include these images, will be the promotional or images that we use for some of the boards or flyers. So, any questions from you guys? Excited? I am.
Need my clicker back. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom, you're up. Did you have a PowerPoint for us?
No, I've got all my notes on my
Okay.
iPad. Well, I'd like to thank the board for another great year that we've just completed. And look forward to another great year. It's going to be exciting with all the, bond issue and everything else that's going on. And as far as my board, I'd like to thank them for providing refreshments and stuff. Make sure you get the cookies were exceptionally good tonight. Good for the waistline. And this last year, we gave out about $16,000 in grants, Educate the Pride grants, and that's going to be real similar to this year. Had a real good response from the teachers and the principals building grants. And this last spring, we had our annual breakfast, and Damon Heiniger was our keynote speaker. He was a Lansing graduate, and he did a great job, and I think just goes to show what a Lansing education can do for you, if you stick with it. And we had about 500 people attend again, so we're pretty much at capacity every year for our breakfast. We may have to find a different venue that keeps growing, so maybe if we have a bigger gymnasium in the new school, we can do that. And last week we had the barbecue bash, which I was out of town, so I hated to miss, but I'm assuming you cooked the hamburgers and stuff again. So.
Dan Wessel and Bill Eccles helped this year, so I was able to save my eyebrows.
But I guess we had about 100 teachers and staff attend, so every year it seems to be growing, and I think we started out with 30 or 40, so they're good turnout for that. And this last year, we just finished up the Educate the Pride grants. I think we're handing out about $16,800. So that's 58% of what we brought in this year. So we're definitely giving back to the community. Our next breakfast is going to be April 12, 2013. We're still working on a keynote speaker. Hopefully you'll get a response fairly soon from somebody from Kansas City that's pretty high up. And next June, we're looking at a pond walk. Different people in the community, if they want to have, an area in their backyard or whatever that they've been working on for water features and whatnot. We're going to try to put together some sort of a fundraiser to where they can go from house to house and just kind of look at different people's backyards, and they can show them off and raise money at the same time. And I just want to say it's been great working with Nineveh this year. I think she's done a great job. It was a real smooth transition from Mary Alice to Nineveh. I think she's doing awesome. And that's pretty much all I have right now. Are there any questions? Oh, our gala, our biennial gala is going to be the Disco Ball, September 15th at the McGilley Fieldhouse at St. Mary's. And we're going to have Disco Dick and the Mirrorballs. It's going to be the featured band. And before they play, we're going to have Lexi Hofer, who is trying to get on with a recording contract in Nashville, Los Angeles. She's got a band that's going to play before Disco Dick, so they'll provide some entertainment before then. And I think the jazz band is going to be doing some stuff as people enter. So the tickets, I think before April 25th or August 25th are $55, and after that are $60. So we're going to have to cut ticket sales off at a certain time so we can give our caterers specific numbers. So anyhow, it should be a good time. So definitely invite everybody to attend, and I'm sure you'll have fun. That's all I have.
Thank you. Number 4.1, the bond issue finance.
I wanted to provide to the board somewhat of an update on the finance side of the bond issue. And as you can see in the text there, that we should receive approval from the State Board of Education sometime this week for our proposal. And then we'll coordinate the publication of the notice of bond election with the county clerk within the next couple of weeks. That's when it'll really become official. The State Board of Approval, and then coordinating with the county clerk. The other thing I wanted to do is to show you a couple of things. Number one is the fact sheet that we put together, and it's not really designed for public as much as all of our employees, staff, and faculty, and so forth. But it's a handy little one-page document that kind of breaks down the entire bond issue for you in terms of cost and state aid. And so as you talk to people and they have questions and so forth, this kind of breaks it down. There's already a few rumors out and those kind of things. That always happens. And this helps kind of correct some of the rumors that fly through these issues. But as you can see, the high school building is about $45 million. The site development is about 16, middle school renovations 8, and the pool 3.5. And so that kind of breaks it down up to $73 million. The other thing that's important, and that I'm really trying to get this message out, is that the state of Kansas will pay 41% of the principal and interest payments. And that can be a little confusing because a lot of folks will make the connection that it's like a loan, that there are principal and interest payments each year. And over the life of that loan, state aid will equate to about $73.5 million. And so we don't, I don't try to broadcast that there is interest, but the other thing to remember is that these are what we think are worst case scenarios. We honestly believe that we'll come under 73. We honestly believe that the interest will be in our favor, judging from where things are. But I think it's a really good message that $73.5 million in state aid will help fund this project. And then the other side of that, and I was telling Claudia, is that after the elections last week, I'm more convinced that this state aid will be gone after this year. I was convinced last month, now I'm more convinced, judging from that. So if you really wanted to break it down, I gave you the schedule. With that principal and interest payments, $73 million, it's like your house. You borrow $200,000 and you look at the sum of your payments, it's 300 and some thousand, that kind of thing. For us, that $73 million, our portion of that through the 25-year life of the bonds is about $94 million, and that's in 25 years. And then the other side of that is the state's portion at about $73.5 million. So you may get questions that go that deep, but the good news is still $73.5 million in state aid. The other thing that helps a lot of folks is the mill rate. And what we did here is break that down from a $100,000 home to $300,000 home. And then assessed value is what they're taxed on. And so we just broke it down for per week, per month, per year. And if you own a $300,000 house, from my calculations, it's a little over a Diet Coke per day, or $414. Student impact, here's the real message that I wanted to put this on top, but a lot of people like to talk about the money. All Lansing students will benefit from this project, is the message that we're trying to put out to the public. That the high school will move to a new facility that will accommodate their numbers. Middle school students will move to a newly renovated school that's more secure, better with safety, will accommodate some other things. 4th and 5th grade students will move to the vacated middle school, which is a really cool facility. In fact, some of the middle school teachers tell me that one of their regrets is having to leave that facility. It's a really good facility, and will make an excellent intermediate school. And then the other thing is that with that, you leave kindergarten through 3rd grade at the new elementary school. It provides more room for them as that population is still growing. And then it opens up some possibilities for preschool and those kind of things as well. So that's the document that we handed out. The document that we're working on, just real briefly, I wanted to show you a couple of things. And then you can download this. It's a draft form, so I'm not publicizing it too much. But a lot of people are interested in the ballot question. This is a draft of what it would look like. And the financing, some of the things I just covered, about 41%. What's really interesting are interest rates. And Greg Bauernberg has shared this with the board before, but I think this is a really neat graph to show to our public about what's happened with interest rates through the years. And then another example, a lot of people like to compare. Every year when the state test scores go out, everybody likes to compare one school to the other. Sometimes we use that to our benefit and do the same thing. And if you'll look here at the current bond and interest mill levies with some comparison school districts, you'll notice that we're around half of many of them at 9.824. And you saw that number earlier with our budget. You look to a close neighbor, we're about half, or a couple of close neighbors. So the other thing I want to point out, and this is a little bit political, but here's a mill levy history in Lansing. And you'll notice that we've been pretty stable the last 3 or 4 years. You know, a little bit of 1 mil, 2 mil, up and down, that kind of thing. Go back to 88, 89, you see 82.59 mil. And that's pre-current school finance. And my point for bringing that up, and you know, a lot of times on history you go back 10 years. I wanted to go back to where I think our governor is going to take us. And I think as that tax shifts back to the local level, I think this is what we're looking at. So, can't tell you how to vote. The same thing on the bond campaign, but I'm asking everyone to please vote with these kinds of things in mind. So, I'll stop with that, Dr. McCall.
Very good. Any questions for Dr. Bagby on that? 5.1 and 5.2 are the maintenance and technology reports. Any questions about those for Dr. Bagby? 6.1 administrative reports. Any questions for our administrators on that? No. I have a question for Dan. How's that iPad science thing going in the middle school?
I'll let you know tomorrow. Actually, we slowly rolling out 200 iPads is a lot of work. Getting them all ready, getting them all synced, because that's all a new process for us also. It'll be a transition for them. I imagine they'll start the year teaching a lot like they have in the past, and this piece of technology will be integrated slowly into each of those classrooms. So it's any of those new technology pieces are slow integration. So they will have them hopefully fully functional by the end of this week. We're still getting some of them synced through the carts and all that. My kids actually stuck them all into their cases just this weekend and hauled them back up and all that type of work. So, the science teachers are very excited.
Good. Any other questions for administrators? Mr. Dyke?
Good evening, welcome back. Obviously, when we brought this to you in May, we were certainly not expecting some of the responses. I want to take the opportunity to make sure we address those concerns and kind of go back through maybe some misinformation, miscommunication, and make sure that we're doing a little better job communicating this time. Go ahead and change that. We are in the MTS implementing multi-tiered systems of support this year. We actually started 3 years ago, and we began with reading. As we implemented reading in the 2010-2011 school year, we followed that up with a year of planning, a year of implementation, and then follow up beyond that. We tried to use a consistent approach through all of those. When we went to reading, we had pretty good scores with some individuals that had been struggling. We put some things in to target those kids, and as we did that, we saw some pretty good gains within the first year last year. Last year was a planning stage for behavior. One of the basic concepts with behavior is what is called positive behavior supports, or PBS. When we when we created our plan, we wanted to look at what is it that will benefit kids, what is it that will motivate kids, and what is it that will get them excited about doing the right things, whatever we determine, whatever behaviors we're trying to get out of a group. And then this year is a planning year for math, and then we'll follow that up with next year being an implementation year. I'm going to go ahead and change that. With our targets for behavior specifically, we look at grades, attendance, and discipline, which are the exact same 3 criteria we look at for out-of-district students. We look at for seniors who are trying to participate in our partial day opportunities. We just try to be consistent with our kids doing academically. Are they doing well? Are they here every day doing the things on a consistent basis? And are they doing, and when they are here, are they using discipline in a manner that, or are they following the rules and doing what we're asking them to do? When we looked at students, we wanted to find positive behavior supports that would motivate them in improving all 3 of those. We'd even, last year, if you remember, I reported to the board that with regards to reading and math, we had even implemented a few of those behavior supports to motivate kids into doing well on state assessments. And we saw a significant jump on state assessment performances. And that was dealing specifically with time at the end of the school year, maybe not time outside of or leaving school, but positive rewards in that manner where they may not be in a final in a specific class or something like that. Saw an outstanding response when we use time. With the high school kids, you're fairly limited in what you can use, though. You've got time, extrinsic rewards, and what will motivate a high school kid oftentimes can surprise you. You know, the typical food, the drawings, a few minutes out of class, whatever that is. One of the things that motivated our kids was the possibility of having a book bag or access to an iPad or something like that to maybe make their day a little easier. And so we did ask kids as to what would motivate those. I know Mr. Brown went and our steering team last year spent some time gathering that information. When we look at how to create time for kids, and that was clearly the number 1 motivator for kids, is that time, the opportunity to get away from school, not have to come in. It's the same principle that we use with our seniors after they've met graduation requirements, giving them a partial day off. The middle school has done the same, a similar approach with using time by giving them a free day off. As we began looking at all of those things, we came up with a recommendation after going through gathering information through students, going through teachers, going through and presenting it to our steering team, and after we had gone through all of that, we came up with the proposal that we brought to you. And the proposal was really about how do we create time. The problem is, go ahead, go to the next thing. The problem is the argument became about finals and not about time. The real issue that we're looking for is how do we create time for those kids. It made sense to us, and we have been talking about this for 10 years or longer, about the value of finals and whether or not it is or is not valuable, and it becomes a very cyclical argument as to whether or not it is or it isn't. Well, I tried to throw you some of both of those sides of the argument as you read through the PowerPoint and read through the presentation. Harvard, 23% of their undergraduate classes have a final. 3% of their graduate level classes have a final. Okay? That's students don't come in and do it one more time. They're expected to be a process from beginning to end, not the event at the end to measure the learning. Go ahead. There was some research out there that I ran across that talked about final exams may be redundant or redundant measurement of performance, as long as you're using unit tests. Now, at the same time, there was also follow-up in that same research project that said the case can still be made for using comprehensive finals. So it kind of goes around and round. Go ahead, Dr. Begbie. And one even talked about there may be some issues with giving that final if students cram for that final, that there's no flow between this class and the next class. There's no flow between between one class and the next. That to me, I thought, well, you know, I'm not sure whether that really fits. However, the research is out there. It's very unclear on value. Go ahead. And one more that says no, giving them the opportunity to pull it together one more time has benefit, has value. So, like I said, that final exam discussion is not what we were trying to get into by any stretch of the imagination. That was not what we were trying to do. What we were trying to do was find a way to reward kids. You want to go ahead? If we reward students with the opportunity to exempt themselves from finals by adhering to the three criteria, grades, attendance, and discipline, for the entire semester, how are we going to know if students will know the material? That was, when I read the letter that we received, that seemed to be one of the major concerns, and it continues to be one of the major concerns that we see. And I even had a parent ask me, are we going to continue to test kids? And the answer is absolutely. Absolutely. We're going to run formative assessments, dipsticking, continual monitor and measuring of progress and moving them forward. And at the same time, the biggest piece that has happened I know I can speak to the last 12 years at the high school, is the use of authentic assessment. Letting kids create projects, create activities, giving them the opportunity to apply and move themselves towards practical application and higher level of Bloom's taxonomy thinking skills with the knowledge that we're giving them. Hopefully, that's what we're preparing them for. I remember 15 years ago, do we give kids facts or do we prepare them to think? I remember sitting in training year after year after year hearing that. And the answer is, I hope we give them the facts and then teach them how to use them every day and apply them in multiple situations. Because that is real life learning. Okay. So what is it we really want? What the high school was asking or trying to make sure that you were aware of was that we are looking at the opportunity to create a reward system for kids that do follow the rules every day. And I know we can say that's an expectation. I expect my son, my daughter to go to school every day and follow the rules. I really do. But sometimes that pat on the back for some kids may not come in the same manner. Okay? Where's the reward? I expect them to be there every day. I expect them to demonstrate an understanding of the material. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do. If the reward system comes in allowing them to miss the last 2 days of the semester and not take a final, that was our target approach. That was how we hoped to do that. And one more thing. Go ahead. One more thing that I do want to point out. And when I say 10 years, I remember 11 years ago, one of the recommendations that came out of and I'm going to date myself here, QPA report was developing a positive reward system for students. That was one of their recommendations. Because we have great kids in Lansing. We have high expectations of our kids. Our kids perform. Every day they come in and do, for the most part, they do the right thing. Okay? And as we continue to raise the bar, they have shown on state assessments, on academic performances, they continue to meet those. Okay? We just keep expecting and expecting and expecting, and that is great. Okay? But as society is changing, we need to make sure we continue to reward and acknowledge and move all kids forward and keep that carrot out there. We saw how well it worked last year with the state assessment. So, any questions? And I know I threw a lot at you. Come on, Doc, let's hear it. You're smiling already.
The thing I would comment is this was never meant to be a policy that the board needed to approve or disapprove.
No, it
Okay.
was simply
An informational.
don't get blindsided. Where do you go? And like I said, that was, I'll take blame for that. I should have probably done a better job making sure that it didn't ever get to that point. So, for that, I apologize for any of the uncomfortable conversations you guys have had.
So if a teacher wants to give a final or a final project, is that possible under your
It
new
is
system?
highly encouraged.
So it's still possible?
It is highly encouraged.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, I look at our math classes. Every math class we have has a project built into it. Most of our social studies classes have some sort of a project already built into it. We're monitoring all the way through. The question is, when we get down to the end, do we have to insist that they come back in and do it one more time if they've done it all the way through, met those criteria? And I know there were those criteria. We spent a lot of time haggling over those also. And there was some discussion about a kid can have all C's. Well, a kid can have all C's and not miss school. And, I mean, there were some pretty stringent, no more than 2 days of absence. And those discipline criteria were, for most kids, they're probably going to be attainable. But that attendance piece is probably going to be the piece that's going to trip most kids up. But there were criteria, and hopefully, if this works, we're going to have kids there more often, doing the right thing, and earning better grades. And if it doesn't work, we'll fix it.
You
We'll change it.
reassess.
It's our version of action research.
Any questions? All righty.
I was just thinking for clarification for my good friend Tim Lynn over there, writing for the 11 More Times. The entire issue is really not about final exemption as much as rewarding students with time off for doing well.
For grades, attendance, and discipline, doing.
And then the good line that I would write, Tim, is that there very well may be finals occurring in those classes.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I would tell you that there will be finals occurring in those classes. Those kids are taking.
And then for the record, I'd like to say Tim does a good job. So
Yes, you do. You do an excellent
Did you write that in there, Tim? Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you.
I'm sorry for the miscommunication.
7.1, Educational Foundation Gifts and Grants. Tom, did you want to talk about this, or are you okay with just letting your nice little slide speak for itself?
That works for me.
Okay. Okay. I'll just say for the board that we appreciate what the foundation is doing to support the effort down to the classroom level. These look like some pretty neat projects. A lot of them are technology related, so Dan probably is getting his work cut out for him. So that's good.
need a motion to accept
Oh,
the gifts.
we need a motion to accept the money.
I move that we accept with grateful hearts the money and all of the work that the foundation has put in.
Second. Any comments or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Very good. Thank you guys at the foundation. So action item 7.2, governmental relations representative. We have to select a member of our board to serve as the governmental relations representative to KASB every year. I don't know where that meeting is this year. Wichita? It was in Overland Park last year. So it's probably in Wichita. That is an esteemed position because you get to vote on behalf of our district.
You're laying it on a little thick.
And some of us are more politically inclined than others. And it would be a great opportunity to experience government in action. So Claudia, would you kindly help us out with that?
Yes, I would love to do that, unless somebody else wants to do it. Last year was great. I loved the workshops, and I saw a whole bunch of my friends and relatives there, so
Good.
it was a good experience.
So I move with Claudia's acceptance that she will be our governmental relations representative to KASB for next year.
Second that.
Any question or discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Very good. Thank you, Claudia. Student handbook, Randy, did you want to comment about that, or Steve?
No real significant changes. We're just putting them together and getting board approval as we always do. One of the things we're gravitating to, and I don't really have all the history, but in the past they tried to do one handbook for all 3 schools, and that really doesn't work very well. And this year we're going to spend time creating separate handbooks for each attendance center. And I have to tell you, some of the parents that I talk to, and usually they read the handbook when there's an issue. You know, that makes sense. So a lot of times we read policies when there's an issue. And it's very confusing to them having to wade through, let's say, a lot of things that are high school specific in a handbook when they're dealing with a third grade person. So wanted to let the board know that's what we're gravitating to, but it's going to take us a year to get it done. We're going to use teaming committees and so forth to do it right. But for this year, we'll try to maintain the course and stick with what we've had pretty much. A lot of the things that change can be things like lunch times, dismissal times, bus pickup kind of things. All the behavioral codes and so forth are basically the same.
Anybody like to make a motion for the handbook approvals?
Make a motion to approve the handbooks as presented.
Second.
Any question or discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Very good. I move that we enter executive session for a period of 30 minutes to discuss matters of non-elected personnel, matters affecting the student, confidential financial data, negotiations, etc.
Second.
I like the executive word. Any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So the clock will start at 8. Danielle? 8.2 resignations and retirements. There were none. 8.3 appointments. I move that we appoint Stephanie Major to the 6th grade physical science literature teacher.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? No. 8.4 supplemental positions. I move that we offer Ron Averill, the middle school head cross-country coach, Lucas Murphy, middle school assistant football coach, Craig Wynn, middle school assistant football coach, Byron Mays, high school assistant football coach, Crystal Reese, high school drama sponsor, Blake Vinery, high school drum corps position percussionist.
Second.
Any questions or discussions? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Good. 8.5 out-of-district students. I move that we accept the list of out-of-district students as presented.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Good. Randy, before we talk about motion to adjourn, do you want to say something about our board retreat coming up a week from Saturday?
Coming up August 25th, everybody got permission from their bosses, if I remember correctly. If you have things that you would like on that agenda, please send them to me. One of the things that I'm hoping to place on the agenda is a firm that I want to come to Lansing and survey our communities and get lots of information about various topics as well as the bond issue and where they may stand on that. And I'll have more information for you on that. But please send me what things you would like on that agenda. And remember, it's 8 to noon, and so it's not, it's not 3 days for a big conference, but I need those items as soon as possible.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Very good. See you next month.